Welcome back to Brian's Rom Pod. I hope you're having a great week. I have another series of interviews. This week we have an interview with Lucy Tomlinson, who runs her own Pilates company and has been doing for the past 5 years. A massive achievement considering we've had a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. I have split the interview into 3 parts. The first part is how she got into Pilates, and she also explains about the core principles of Pilates. I'm sure you'll enjoy our chat. So you're thinking about running, but not sure how to take the first step. My name is Brian Patterson, and I'm here to help. Welcome to Brian's Rom Pod. Welcome back to Ryan's Rom Pod, and today we have another special guest, and I'm really excited to have with us Lucy Tomlinson, who is the Pilates teacher and founder of Welcome Pilates. You might be asking, well, what has this to do with running? Well, I'm always a believer to be the best runner you can be, you have to draw on different disciplines, and it provides variety to your training and will, in the long run, make you a better runner. So anyway, back to Lucy. She got into Pilates at university and says, I discovered Pilates at university when I was going through a period of particular poor mental health, and it gave me a place to escape while studying for my degree. She says that her mission is, and I quote, I created Welcome Pilates to help people connect back to themselves, to feel more confident in their bodies and more energized in their minds. Pilates helps people to gain strength, improve flexibility, mobility, and stability, and have more body awareness and prevent injury. Welcome to the podcast, Lucy. Right, enough of that. Anyway, over to you, Lucy. So anyway, how are you today?
I'm good, yeah. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Great. So you said you discovered it at university. I mean, were you always quite an active person anyway?
Fairly active. I went to school locally around here, actually. So I was at Aldergrave.
Oh, right, yeah.
So they are quite big on sport, but I was never that much of a team sportswoman, I should say.
Yeah.
I really liked athletics, but I was awful at netball and hockey. So actually for me, discovering Pilates was quite a good thing because I found something that I actually really enjoyed for me. You mentioned in your intro that I was going through a bit of a poor mental health spot, and I had been using exercise as more of a punishing thing rather than for good.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
It was really good for me to find Pilates because, like I said, I'd been using it in quite a negative, unhealthy way, and it showed me that you can still exercise and in a better way, basically. So that was a really positive thing.
Oh, right. Okay. Did anyone, in particular was, kind of said, well, why don't you try that? Was there anyone there, or was it just something you just either came across?
It was just something I came across. I had always heard of Pilates, but I didn't really know what it was. And then I was a member of a gym. I went to Plymouth University and I was a member of the gym there. And it was a great package. You had all classes included it can't have been very expensive. But so I discovered it there, started going to classes, and my teacher at the time was amazing. She actually was also called Lucy.
Oh, right.
So I was very inspired by her. But she was great, and I was going 2 to 3 times a week, trying to get all my friends to come along. Some of them did, but no one seemed to really get the buzz.
Get the bug.
Yeah, the bug, exactly.
Get the bug. So was there kind of an inflection point where, big word there, but basically where you felt, your well-being, your mental health had improved because of, and then you thought, oh, maybe this is something I could do, or I could, run with?
Yeah, well, Lucy, the teacher at the time, she strongly encouraged me. I think I was going so much. She kind of thought, you're obviously enjoying this. Do you think you would want to do it yourself? But I was studying for my degree and I didn't actually make the full connection until I came back to London, was working in industry. So I was working in graphic design.
Oh, right.
you can't really go off and do Pilates classes in the middle of the day like I was doing at uni. So,
no.
yeah, I'm sure your listeners being sat at a desk, that kind of sedentary lifestyle is quite common. And I really struggled with it. So it was then that I kind of made the connection that actually I would wanted to do something more physical, and retrained and then started my Pilates.
So you're a level 3.
Level 3 mat work, and as well as reformer. So I'm trained in the reformer as well, which is one of the key machine.
We'll talk about that later because I as I told you, when we were communicating, I'm a complete. I really don't know idiot. I mean, in terms of you are talking about this is the idiot's guide to
that's fine.
Pilates. That's right. That's fine. So so you discovered Pilates at university, and then you went into industry, and I take it you studied graphic design at university. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and so let's kind of move on to about Pilates. What's kind of the core philosophy of Pilates?
So Pilates, generally, I often get asked, what is Pilates? I think there's quite a lot of misconceptions around it. A lot of people ask me if it's the same as yoga, and there definitely are similarities. So obviously, you're based on the mat, which you are in yoga, but as I mentioned just a moment ago, there are machines as well. So like you said, we can go into that in a bit more detail later, but there are similarities with yoga. I think the easiest way to distinguish it from yoga is that yoga is more about stillness, doing poses. Pilates is more about flowing movements and moving from one exercise into the next, and it's more about the mobility aspect of it. So that's the real difference. Also, yoga is much older than Pilates and was used to do before prayer, which hence the stillness, whereas Pilates was created by a man in the early 20th century.
Right, okay.
So Joseph Pilates, where the name...
Oh, I see. Okay.
He didn't call it after himself. He's an interesting man, but he didn't actually call it after himself. He originally called it chronology. So that's the control element, because it is a lot about control and, really being in control of your body. But it was later changed to being called Pilates once he died.
Oh, right, okay. So was this sort of in the 50s or
he started his exercise. He came up with the exercises. He did actually study yoga, and he also studied the movement of animals, especially cats. So that kind of spinal movement that you see cats do, that stretch, a lot of that came from the really intuitive movement animals do.
Yeah.
But this was in kind of the First World War. So he was actually in camps, and he did lots of rehabilitation on soldiers, seriously injured soldiers, which is where he got his idea for the springs of the reformers. So he used the springs from the beds.
Oh, right. So even the reformers go back then.
Yeah, so the original beds are really his. It was very innovative for his time. He kind of was really ahead of the curve.
Oh, right. Okay. And was it all about because I know, was it all, I've always thought that, core strength was kind of a recent thing, but even then it's...
Yeah, he
focused on that.
He really had the idea. So before he was in the camps, he was a martial artist and a circus performer, and he did lots of boxing. And that was all because he was a very sickly child. So he had lots of different ailments, which made him his focus of his life, overcoming those. And he found that physical exercise really was the thing that helped him.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Because that's interesting. I mean, one of the athletes that I interviewed, Stuart Hayes, he was hyperactive, and the only thing they felt his parents felt they could do was to take him swimming or to do lots of physical activity because he was very, very hyperactive, and to get rid of that excess energy. But anyway, that's
probably similar though.
Probably a similar thing. So the core principles being self-connection, I've got here, body confidence, mental energy. Obviously, we talk about the core. Is that right in terms of Pilates?
Yeah, the kind of if somebody was first coming to my classes, those things that you mentioned, definitely. But you can kind of think about it as the ABCs of Pilates. So A for alignment. And we talk a lot about your alignment in Pilates. We want you to be moving from the best place possible. So we often get set up it before we start moving. So if you think about your spine, the natural curves that you have in your spine, it'll be different for everybody. And we want to get you in your best neutral, is what it's generally called. Some school of thoughts have, we talk from a neutral perspective. So that's your neutral spine, neutral pelvis. And when you're in that really good neutral, it means that your body is going to be moving from ease, a place of ease, so that you're going to get the best out of. And then B, so the B of the ABCs is breathing.
Right.
Which is really important for functional movement. The more you can use your breath to help facilitate each movement. And also, so we use a breath called the lateral breath, which is breathing into the sides and backs of your rib cage. And that helps. So the in-breath is often used to prepare for the movement, and the out-breath is often used for the more challenging part of the movement, because then you're going to be able to connect to your deeper abdominal muscles, and that leads into the C, which is centering, or your core strength. So that's all about the kind of, Joseph Pilates called it your powerhouse. That's your trunk, and you start your movement from that. You engage in that so that you can then move more fluidly with ease.
Like, I think we're going to be coming to that in terms of later on, in terms of the Q&A, but that's quite a lot too, because let's say if someone who's new to Pilates and they come along.
Yeah.
So to take in all that, how do you kind of overcome that? You know, you've got to breathe in this way and that way. How do you approach that? Someone who's really new, let's say I come to your class.
Yeah, well, I'd love you to come. But the best thing I say, especially with the breathing, because often people do get quite focused on it and they worry they're not breathing, or they forget to breathe. Yeah. I always just say, when you're new, as long as you're breathing, it's fine. So I always remind people in class, you can see it happening when we're doing something, even if it's not a particularly challenging exercise, but people start to focus and concentrate, and then they stop breathing. And obviously we need breath for life. Of course. So I'm always saying, make sure we're breathing, don't forget to breathe. And it can become quite humorous, because people think, oh yeah, I'm not breathing. But so I always just say, as long as you're breathing, it's fine. And the breaths will come later. So people think, oh, you have to breathe in at this part, you have to breathe out another part. You don't. There's definitely certain exercises that it helps the exercise to breathe in or out at a certain point. But as long as you're breathing, that's the main thing when you first start. Okay.
And then no doubt sort of later on, you kind of get the hang of
it. Becomes second nature. And I remember when I first started even having those thoughts myself, and then one day it just kind of clicks, and I thought, oh, I'm not thinking so much about those things anymore. They just become second nature.
So you said alignment, so breath, and is there a C?
Yeah, the C is centering, which all can be known as core strength. So a lot of people come to Pilates wanting this core strength thing, which again is quite an elusive term, but again it kind of goes hand in hand with the breath, that the core strength element.
Oh, right. Okay. So, and do you see that? I mean, we touched on it earlier in terms of kind of that mental health aspect of it. I mean, how long have you had your company? I mean, have you seen, the benefits that other people have had through that kind of the mental health aspect of it?
Yeah, definitely. I think I have been running my business since 2018.
Oh, right. Well done.
Well, I was originally Pilates with Lucy. There's quite a lot of Pilates with Brian or Pilates with Lucy and I. So then I changed the name to Welcome Pilates actually in 2021. So kind of middle of COVID times. And it really was during COVID, we went online and did all the classes online. And I think that was a real moment. Obviously, everyone was going through lots during that time. But I had a lot of people say that just coming online and doing that class with people that they knew, and people chat at the class, but often everyone was rushing around, kind of coming to class and then leaving. But actually having that human point of connection, and seeing everybody else on the screen, and obviously everyone in their homes and things, it was, for me as well, it was really important that I could even keep going during COVID. And actually it showed me how I could work in a completely different way. So I do still run 4 online classes a week.
All right.
Which is nice because I was living in a different part of London, and I've still kept some of those members because they still come online.
Okay. So do you have a studio at home or not? Or no?
Not a studio at home. I rent a space,
Okay.
And hold classes there, which are in Twickenham. But yeah, doing a combo of both is quite nice, that you can see people online and then also have people come in person.
All right. Okay. So is that you do it at our church? Don't you?
Yes,
That's
the
right.
Holy Trinity Church.
Holy
Yeah.
Trinity, yeah. In fact, I know because I've seen one of your pictures on Facebook, and I know a couple of people. And one person.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, you have to tell me after.
Yeah. So that was quite good to sort of keep the business running, throughout COVID, and also to come out the other end.
Exactly.
Because obviously there've been sort of casualties in terms of businesses, but that was quite good.
Yeah, it was definitely something I'd never considered teaching online. When I did my training, it wasn't really a thing, whereas now it's much bigger. And there's definitely benefits to it. Obviously, you can join from anywhere that you are in the world, time difference,
Yeah, sure.
factoring in. But the thing about the in-person is that I can really kind of get my hands on people and offer those corrections. I think with online, the beauty that I had is that I'd already taught a lot of those people in person. So I knew their bodies quite well and they knew me. When I have someone new coming, you can still do it online. I still offer corrections and adjustments, and you can still we try and make it the best studio experience in the comfort of your own home. Yeah. But nothing really beats being in a room with somebody and being able to see their bodies 360 rather than on Zoom. You can only really see one or two angles because you don't want to be making people move around too much. But it does work very well, and it's nice to have both options.
So just getting back to, I know this is a running podcast, but whatever, but do you, what kind of reasons do you get people who have done, other forms of physical exercise, do they come to you to say, well, I really struggle because, I don't know, I'm a cyclist or I'm a runner or I do this or that. And I really need to have these different things to help me.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people come to Pilates, they've been told to do it because they've had some kind of injury or back pain. But in terms of cyclists, runners, I think you're a runner as well. You probably know tight hamstrings, maybe sore hips, sore knees, sore ankles.
Hips, definitely.
Hips, So that kind of thing, I'm a runner as well. I love running, but the two really complement each other. So it's really good to be able to utilize the smaller, more intrinsic muscle groups that support those joints. So your hips, your knees, your ankles, especially if you're a runner, but also the mobility aspect. So building flexibility, you will find that doing a combination of the two, they do really work together, and you will be a stronger runner if you're doing those kind of mobility exercises. I'm sure obviously everyone says to stretch before and after a run, but I'm not sure how many people do it effectively.
No,
you're looking worried. But it's kind of that thing. I think sometimes I think the misconception with Pilates is people might think it's boring or very slow or not high impact, and it's not high impact, but it can be very challenging. And you often get people coming who are very fit, very active, run marathons, but they find the exercise is really challenging because it's a completely different discipline.
Yeah, that's right. So for those who are starting out, who are very new, and they're sort of coming to your class or whoever has a class, whatever. So what are the kind of basic exercises that, I tell you may say to them, well, go away and do this. And, if you're sitting down or, lying and watching in front of the TV, what are the sort of the basic things they can be doing?
Yeah, so I would always start with the spine and say you want to be moving your spine in every direction that you can. Flexion, that's basically like rolling down. If you're from standing, rolling all the way down, so you're getting a rounded shape in your back. Extension, so if you lie flat on the floor and you're basically lifting from your head, your neck, your chest, all the way up, all the way down, to your hips if you can, if you've got that range of movement. So that's kind of, if you see dogs on their when they're in a kind of a 4 points and they go into that extended position of the spine, that's kind of that. Is a big stretch.
So you're on all fours.
If you do it from lying down, so you're in prone, flat on the floor.
With your face down.
Face down, and then you lift up from your head. I'm demonstrating. Obviously, this is, not a visual, an audio podcast, but you're lifting basically from your head, and you're peeling your spine off the mat.
Oh, I see.
So you're getting that extension in the spine.
Okay.
So those two, they're kind of the opposites: flexion, rounding, extension, coming up into that position. And then you have rotation, so turning the spine side to side, and then lateral flexion is basically a side bend, so you're moving over to the side.
Right, okay.
So those 4 movements for your spine, I'd say try and incorporate those every day.
Right.
Often, obviously, in most people's life, we are kind of sat down at desks. We're often in a flex position of our spine. So getting that extension, opening up the chest, opening up around the hips is very important. Because you're counteracting the movement that we tend, or the position that we tend to be in for most of the day.
Yeah, because we I think probably, I do, we tend to have that rounded shoulder.
Bit, exactly, sort of, which is quite normal in everyday life because we're sat at desks, we're sat at laptops, phones, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what Pilates does. It helps you to become aware of those things. So when you are sat at your desk, noticing your posture, thinking, can I sit up taller? Where am I sat on my sit bones? Are my feet flat on the floor? Just all those things, building that awareness to... and the exercises that we do in class emulate things that you do in everyday life. So there's very functional movement. And we want people to start to become aware of their body in space in the class, so that when they're out in the real world living their lives, they are more aware of how they're holding themselves.
That's right. So by doing those, spine exercises every day, that will just help with their flexibility of the spine.
Yeah, mobility in particular of the spine,
That's it for another episode, and looking forward to speaking to you next week with some beginner hints and tips about running. I just want to let you know that you can follow me on X, or what was known as Twitter, at Brian's Run Pod. I have just recently set up a Facebook page which is called Brian's Run Pod, and I am on Instagram at Brian's Run Pod. Also, my website is www.briansrunpod.co.uk, where you can get show notes, or on whatever podcasting app you are listening to the show. Plus, all my episodes have chapter markers if you need to get to different segments of the show. Plus, leave a review, as it will help others find this podcast. Music is Happy Day by Stock Audio, not forgetting artwork by Alice Patterson. Till next week, thanks again for listening.